You want to know why I did not arrest her? That is the question, isn't it? That is why I am standing here giving this account, why the captain's face is the way it is, why there's a clerk writing down every word I say. A princess of House Renwick gave a direct command in front of witnesses with her little brother bleeding on the floor. Arrest her. She attacked my little brother. And I, a guard sworn to that house, heard the command and did not obey it. I did not put my hands on the girl. And so now I account for myself, and I will, fully, because I am not ashamed of it, though I was afraid the whole time and am still afraid now, standing here. I'll tell you everything I saw and everything I judged in the half a minute I had to judge it, and then you can decide what to do with me. But I did not arrest her, and when I'm done you'll understand that I couldn't have, not and stayed a man I could live inside. Let me tell it the way it came, fast, because it came fast. I was on the gallery above the small hall, the children's hall, where the younger royal children take their lessons and their meals away from the formal rooms, a warmer, plainer place, you know it. Mid-afternoon. Quiet. I had the gallery watch, which is a nothing watch. You stand above and you look down at children doing children's things and you keep the boredom off your face. The two youngest of the royal children were below, the Princess Cecily, who is 9, and the little Prince Hal, who is 5. And one of the kitchen children, a girl, was below as well, which I'll come to, because the kitchen girl is the whole of it. The kitchen girl is Linnet. The asterisk, her asterisk of asterisk, arrest her. And you need to understand what she was doing in that hall before you can understand why I would not lay hands on her. She was 12, maybe 13. A scullery child, you know the kind, the children of the lower kitchens who carry and scrub and are sent running with trays, half-grown, half-fed, invisible the way I used to be invisible, the way all the small, useful nobodies of a great house are invisible. Linnet. I knew her a little only because the gallery watch is dull and you come to know the comings and goings below you, and I'd seen her many days bringing the children's afternoon things up from the kitchens, the bread and milk, and taking the dishes down, in and out, quiet, quick, eyes down the way a kitchen child learns to keep them in the presence of royal children. That was her place in that room. She brought the food and took the dishes, a nobody with a tray. Hold that, because the court has already decided what she is, and what the court has decided she is asterisk an attacker, asterisk a low creature who raised her hand to a prince. And I am telling you what she actually was, which was a half-starved 12-year-old who carried bread up a stair, so that you'll feel the size of what almost happened to her on the strength of a frightened child's shout. I'll tell you the little I knew of her, because it matters now that someone in this account speak of her as a person and not a charge. She had a way of moving through that hall that I'd watched many an afternoon without thinking about it. The way a kitchen child moves among royal children, which is the way you move through a room you're not allowed to truly be in, quick and small and apologetic, taking up as little of the world as a body can, setting a dish down without a sound, lifting one away before it's noticed. A child trained from the cradle to be furniture the way I'd been trained to be furniture, two invisibilities passing each other daily. Hers below and mine above. I never heard her speak, not once in all those afternoons. A scullery child does not speak in that hall. She answers if a royal child speaks to her, low and brief, and otherwise she is silent, and Linnet was silent. And so when I tell you that later, in the worst minute of it, she made only a small animal sound and had no words to defend herself, understand that it was not shock alone. It was that the court had spent her whole short life teaching her she had no voice in a room like that, and then was astonished and offended when she could not summon one to save herself. They made her voiceless and then they hanged her for her silence, near to it. And here is the thing I have turned over and over since, the thing that breaks my heart in the middle of my anger. Where does a half-starved kitchen child learn to save a choking person? Because that is not nothing, what she did, to know, in the half-second a child's face goes wrong, that it is choking and not some other thing, and to know the blows, the hard blows between the shoulders, the exact brutal remedy that grown guardsmen standing closer did not know, that is knowledge, real knowledge, the kind you do not have by accident. And I think I know where she had it. The lower kitchens are full of small children eating too fast because there is never enough and you bolt what you can before it's taken, and small children choke. And there is no physician down in the kitchens. There is only the other children and the hard cooks. And a scullery child learns young to thump the breath back into a choking littler one because no one else is coming. No one is ever coming for the children of the lower kitchens. She had saved a choking child before. I would stake my life on it. She had the steadiness of someone who'd done it, down in the dark and the steam where children's lives are worth nothing, and so the children learned to save each other. That is what raised the hand the princess called an attack, a whole hard childhood of nobody coming, of small starved bodies learning to keep each other alive. And it was the most useful knowledge in that hall in that minute, more useful than all the rank and all the swords, and it lived in the one person there the court had decided was worth the least. Hold that too. I want the clerk to write that down. The thing that saved the prince's life was a skill a starving child learned saving other starving children, and the court's thanks for it was a pair of guards' hands on her arms. Here is what I saw, and I saw it. That's the thing I keep coming back to. That's why I'm the one who has to say this. Most of the people now so sure of what happened did not see it. They came after. They came to the sound. I was above it, looking down when it happened, and it happened in front of my eyes, and I will tell you exactly what these eyes saw and not one thing more. You have to understand the gallery to understand why I, of everyone, saw it true. The gallery runs above the children's hall along one side, a railed walk, and a guard posted their looks down on the whole room from above and a little behind, the way you'd look down into a box. It is the worst watch in the keep for the boredom and the best in the keep for seeing, because nothing in that room is hidden from above. The angles that hide things at floor level, the turned backs, the bodies between you and a thing, none of that exists from the gallery. You see the whole floor laid out plain like a board of play. Down on the floor where the princess was, where the guards would come, you see what the person nearest you is doing, and the rest is backs and gaps. From the gallery you see everything and you are seen by no one, because no one looks up, no one ever looks up. The watcher above is the most invisible man in any room. So I had the one vantage in that whole hall from which the truth was plain, and I had it by the accident of a dull posting. And I have thought since that if any other man had drawn the gallery that afternoon and I had been on a floor watch, Linnet would be in a cell now or worse, and no one would ever have known the right of it, because the only clear eyes in the room were up where nobody thinks to put their trust. The little Prince Hal was at the table, and he had been given his afternoon bread and milk, and he was doing what a bored 5-year-old does, which is not eating it but playing, and he had a hard sugar sweet, a boiled comfit, the round hard kind that someone had given him, and he had been told not to have it before his bread, and he'd had it anyway the way they do, and he put the whole of it in his mouth at once, the whole hard round sweet, to hide it, I think, to get it gone before anyone took it. And it went wrong. I saw it go wrong. I saw the exact moment a playing child's face changed, that change you pray you never see, the eyes going wide and wrong, the hands coming up to the throat, the silence. That is the thing. That is what no one below understood fast enough, that it went silent. He could not cough. He could not cry. He could not make a sound because the sweet had gone down into his throat and stopped it. The whole hard round thing wedged in a 5-year-old's windpipe, and a child who cannot breathe cannot scream. And so to anyone not looking right at him, nothing was happening at all. His sister was a little way off. She did not see the silent thing. Children don't. Even grown people don't. The silence of a choking child is the most missed emergency there is, because we are built to startle at noise, and a child dying of a blocked throat makes no noise at all. I want to tell you what those few seconds were like from the gallery, because they are the seconds the whole case turns on and no one else lived them. I saw the prince's face go wrong, and I knew, the way you know a thing in your spine before your mind has it in words, that the child was choking. I have a child of my own, grown now, But I have held a choking child in my own arms once, years ago, my own boy, a fishbone, and a man who has done that once never unknows the look. It is burned in, the wide wrong eyes and the clawing at the throat and the awful quiet. And I knew it, and I was 100 feet away and above, behind a rail, with a stair between me and the floor, too far, far too far, and I felt the whole bottom drop out of me, that helpless falling you feel when you see a disaster begin, and know you cannot reach it in time. I was already moving, shouting. I think I shouted, I don't fully remember. The captain says no one below heard a shout, but I think I shouted, running for the gallery stair, knowing even as I ran that I would be too late, that by the time I made the floor the boy would be down, that the seconds a choking child has are fewer than the seconds I needed, and that there was nothing I could do but run and be too late. And then the kitchen girl moved, and I did not have to be in time, because someone closer already was. Linnet saw, the kitchen girl saw. She was closest, clearing a dish, eyes down, nobody, and she saw the prince's face do the terrible silent thing. And she did not freeze, which I will think about for the rest of my life, because I have seen grown guardsmen freeze at less. This half-starved scullery child saw a prince choking to death in silence 3 feet from her, and she moved, fast, faster than thought, the way only a person moves who has somehow already known what to do. And she got behind him, and she took him up out of his chair against her own body, and she struck him. Hard. Between the shoulders, hard. The flat hard blows you'd think too hard for a child's back, once, twice. And that is the picture, you understand. That is the exact picture that the princess turned and saw, and that everyone who came running saw the shape of after. The kitchen girl with her arms around the prince, striking him, the prince's face a horror, and an instant later blood. Because the third blow brought it up the sweet, and with it blood, because a comfort does not come up from a child's throat gently, it tears coming up, and his mouth and the front of him were suddenly blood, and the sweet shot out onto the floor and skittered, that hard, round, innocent thing, and the prince pulled in a breath at last, a huge whooping, tearing breath, alive, alive, and started to wail. And that breath, that wail, was the first sound any of it had made. And so that was the moment everyone below came alert, to the wail and the blood and the kitchen girl's arms around the prince, and to a 5-year-old screaming and bleeding in the grip of a scullery child who had just been hitting him. And the Princess Cecily, 9 years old, who loved her little brother, who had not seen the silent choking and had not seen the rescue and saw only the end of it, her brother screaming, blood everywhere, a kitchen nobody's hands on him, did the thing I cannot even blame her for, will not blame her for, because she was 9 and terrified, and the picture was monstrous if you came to it late. She screamed for the guards. She screamed, arrest her. She attacked my little brother. And the guards came running. And I was already moving down the gallery stair, because I was the one who had seen the whole of it from above, and I knew, I was the only soul in that hall who knew, that the girl they were about to seize had just saved the prince's life. Now I want you to think about what was true in that hall and what was believed in it, because they were opposite things, and that gap is the whole of why I'm standing here. What was true? A kitchen child had saved a prince's life. What was believed by everyone in that hall who had ears and no eyes on the start of it, that a kitchen child had attacked a prince. And it was not a close thing, the believing. It was instant and total, because everything pointed one way. A princess of the blood had said it, she attacked my little brother. And a princess of the blood is believed. That is nearly the definition of a princess of the blood, that her word is taken. And the prince was bleeding and screaming, which is what attacked children do. And the accused was a scullery nobody, which is what attackers are in the court's deep grammar. The low raise their hands to the high. That is the shape the world is expected to come in. Every single thing in that hall, the rank of the accuser and the blood on the prince and the lowness of the girl, every single thing lined up behind the lie, and nothing at all stood behind the truth except one gallery guard coming down a stair. The truth had no rank. The truth had no blood on it to show. The truth had only me, and I am nobody, and I had perhaps 20 seconds before the thing became unstoppable. Because here is what happens. What was already happening as my boots hit the hall floor. The other guards reached her. They had heard the princess. They had their orders from the highest mouth present, a royal command, clean and direct, arrest her. And a guard does not weigh a royal command. That's the whole of our training. You hear the command and your hands move. And their hands were moving. They had hold of Linnet. They were pulling her off the prince and her arms were coming up behind her and she was making a sound I still hear. Not words. The girl wasn't even trying to defend herself with words. She had no words. She was a kitchen child who had just done the bravest thing I ever saw and was being seized for it. And she had no language to fight a princess with, none. She just made a small animal sound of terror. The sound of a nobody who knows that when the high accuse the low, there is no court in the world that hears the low. She knew already. 12 years old and she already knew she was finished. You could see her stop struggling. That's the thing that moved my feet faster than my head. She stopped struggling because some part of her had already done the arithmetic the whole court runs on and knew the answer. A princess said it, so it's true, so I'm lost. She was surrendering to it, to the machine. And I reached them, and I did the thing I'm accounting for. I did not help them take her. I put myself between the girl and the men taking her, and I said loud, too loud, louder than a gallery guard should ever be in a royal hall, stop, I saw it. Let her go, she saved him. I'll tell you, it is a strange and frightening thing to set your own word against a princess's, against a royal command already given, in front of running guards and gathering courtiers, to be the one voice in a loud hall saying the opposite of what everyone has decided is true. Every part of my training screamed against it. A guard obeys. A guard does not contradict the blood. A guard especially does not, on his own authority, with no rank to speak from, countermand a princess in her own house over the body of her bleeding brother. I felt the wrongness of it in my own gut even as I did it, the deep-trained wrongness. This is not your place. The same voice I imagine every man feels who has ever had to stand against the current of what everyone powerful has already agreed to. And I want to be honest, because this is an honest accounting. A part of me even then was calculating the cost, and the cost was plainly my place, my livelihood, maybe worse. You do not countermand a princess and keep your post, whatever the truth turns out to be, because the court does not forgive being made wrong in front of itself. I knew, standing between the girl and the guards with my too loud word hanging in the air, that I was very likely ending myself to save a kitchen child I barely knew. I did it anyway. I'd like to say it was pure courage. It wasn't. It was that I had seen the silent choking and the brave hard blows with my own eyes, and I could not then stand and watch the child who'd struck them be dragged to a cell for it. I could not be one more body in a hall lining up behind the easy lie because the lie wore a crown and the truth wore an apron. I have to be able to live inside myself. That's all. I'm not a hero. I just couldn't get out of the way. The hall stopped. That's the power of one voice saying I saw, even a nobody's voice. It does not win, but it stops things. It puts a crack in the certainty. Because I saw it is a claim no amount of rank can simply roll over. It has to be dealt with. The guards holding Linnet hesitated, looked to each other, looked to me, looked to the princess. And the Princess Cecily, 9 years old, tear-streaked, furious, terrified, looked at me, the guard who had just contradicted her, who had just said her monstrous true-seeming thing was wrong. And I watched a 9-year-old's face do something complicated and awful, because I had not only contradicted her, I had, in front of the whole hall, told her she was wrong about the most frightening thing that had ever happened to her. And she did not yet have any way to understand how she could be wrong when she had seen the blood, seen the hands, and so for a moment her terror turned to anger at me, and she drew herself up, this small girl, and she said it again, harder, her voice cracking. She attacked him, I saw, arrest her, and the guard's hands tightened again. Because the princess had doubled, and the command stood, and the crack in the hall began to close. And I understood that telling them I saw * was not going to be enough. Rank versus rank, the princess's seeing beat my seeing every time. Her I saw asterisk outweighed my I saw asterisk because of whose mouths they came from, and Linnet was going to the cell on the difference. Unless I could do the one thing that might break a certainty that rank alone could not break. Show them the truth itself, the physical truth, the thing on the floor that did not care who was high and who was low. The sweet, the comfort. The hard round thing that had come up out of the prince's throat and skittered across the floor, bloody, the size of the prince's choking and the proof of it, lying somewhere on the stones of that hall where no one had thought to look because everyone was looking at the screaming and the blood and the girl. I went for it. I got down on the floor of a royal hall in front of the court on my hands looking, while the princess's command hung in the air and the guards held the girl, an absurd sight, a grown guardsman crawling on the flagstones in the middle of a crisis. And I found it, the bloody comfort against the table leg where it had rolled, and I picked it up, and I stood, and I held it out on my open palm for the hall to see, this small terrible thing, and I said the only argument that was bigger than rank. He choked on this. She got it out of him. Look at it. Look at his color now. Look at him breathe. She didn't attack him. She saved his life, and you're about to put her in a cell for it. I have thought a great deal since, about why the comfort worked when my word had not. It was a small bloody sweet on a guard's palm. It had no rank, and that was exactly its power. It was a piece of the truth that did not come out of anyone's mouth, that could not be outranked, that simply sat there on my hand being what it was, the round, hard shape of a thing that had been in a child's throat. The court could disbelieve a gallery guard. It could not disbelieve the object. And in the quiet after I held it up, I watched the certainty in that hall come apart slowly, as people's eyes went from the sweet to the prince, to little Hal, who was breathing now, wailing and bloody but breathing, pinking up, alive. The way a child is not when he has been attacked but is exactly when he has been saved from choking, and you could see them re-seeing it. The whole hall, the picture rearranging itself behind their eyes. The kitchen girl's arms going from a thing that strangled to a thing that rescued. The hard blows going from violence to the only thing that could have saved him. The blood going from a wound to the tearing that a sweet makes when it is forced back up a throat that breath was about to leave forever. And the guard's hands loosened on Linnet, slowly, uncertainly. They looked to the captain who had come in by then, and the captain looked at the comfort and looked at the prince breathing and looked, a long moment at me, and gave the small nod that took the weight off the girl, and they let her go. She did not run. That is a thing I remember. A child unjustly seized, suddenly freed, and she did not bolt. She went straight back to the prince, to Hal, to check him. This child who had just been nearly destroyed for saving him went straight back to make sure the saving had held, knelt by him and looked at his face and his breathing with a fierce, frightened attention. The attention of someone who has done a brave, hard thing and needs to know it worked. And only when she saw him truly breathing did her own legs seem to go. And she sat down hard on the floor and began to shake, which is the body doing what the moment would not let it do, and no one had thought yet to go to her. The saved child's savior shaking alone on the stones, so I did. I went and crouched by the kitchen girl while the court tended the prince, and I did not say anything clever. There isn't anything clever. I just stayed by her so she would not be shaking alone on the floor of a hall that had been about to cage her. And after a while she stopped shaking and she looked at me, and she didn't thank me either. There was nothing to thank. We just looked at each other, the two nobodies who had seen the true thing, and that was enough. But I have not told you the part that matters most, and it is about the princess, and it is the reason I do not, to this day, hold one moment of anger toward the child who nearly destroyed an innocent with a shout. Because the Princess Cecily, 9 years old, stood in that hall and watched the truth arrive, and watched her own monstrous certainty come apart, and understood. I saw her understand it. I was watching her face. It is the second face from that day I will never forget, the first being Hal's silent choke, and the second being his sister's slow comprehension, understood that she had been wrong, that the thing she had seen and been so sure of had been the end of a story whose beginning she'd missed. That she had, in her terror and her love for her brother, nearly sent the girl who saved him to a cell, maybe worse. A 9-year-old does not have anywhere to put a thing like that. I watched it hit her, and I watched her have no shelter from it. The enormity of how close her own true feeling wrongness had come to a terrible end. And she began to cry, not the furious, frightened crying from before, a different crying. The crying of a child who has just met, far too young. The most frightening thing a person can learn, which is that you can be completely certain and completely wrong, that your own eyes can lie to you, that the obvious thing can be the false thing. And that being sure is not the same as being right. And then the Princess Cecily did the thing that told me what kind of queen she might one day be, the thing that redeemed the whole terrible afternoon, the thing no one made her do. She went to Linnet. The princess went to the kitchen girl, crossed the hall in front of everyone, to the shaking scullery child she had just tried to have arrested, and she did not command, and she did not explain herself, and she did not offer the cool royal regret that the court would have coached into her. She was 9. She just stood in front of the girl who'd saved her brother, and her face was wrecked with it, and she said, very small, "I'm sorry. I didn't see. Thank you for my brother." And then, because she was 9 and it was too big to hold, she put her arms around the kitchen girl and cried into her shoulder. The princess and the scullery child holding each other on the floor of the hall, rank forgotten, both of them just children who had been through a terror together. And I had to look away then. I am not ashamed to say it. A grown guardsman looking at the wall of a royal hall so the gathering court would not see his face. So that is why I did not arrest her. You asked, and I have told you. I disobeyed a princess's direct command. I countermanded a royal order in front of the court. I crawled on the floor of the hall. I set my nobody's word against the blood, and I would do every part of it again. And if it cost me my place, then it cost me my place. Because some things cost more than a place, and one of them is being the man who stood in a hall and watched a child be caged for a rescue because the truth wore an apron and the lie wore a crown. I am a guard. I was trained to obey. But I have come to believe there is a thing under the obedience, deeper than the obedience, that the obedience is supposed to serve and not replace. And that thing is that we are put in these halls armed and watching, so that when the powerful are about to crush the powerless by honest mistake, somebody who saw the truth is standing there to say, "No, wait, I saw, that's not what happened." If a guard won't do that, if a guard's obedience is so total that he'll help drag a child to a cell on a shout because the shout had rank, then what is the guard for? What are we for, if not for the one moment the whole job is secretly about? The moment a nobody needs one person with a sword and a conscience to stand between her and the machine. They are deciding now what to do with me. Maybe I lose my place. The princess has asked that I not. I'm told she went to the king herself about it, 9 years old, and made it her business that the guard who corrected her should not suffer for correcting her, which if it's true means she learned the whole lesson and not half of it. Learn not just that she was wrong, but that the man who told her so did her the deepest service anyone did her that day. I don't know how it will go for me, but I find I don't lie awake on it. I lie awake on the silent choke and the brave hard blows and a kitchen child shaking alone on cold stone, and I am at peace with the one thing I did that they're questioning, because I have asked myself the only question that matters. If I had it again, would I get out of the way and let them take her? And the answer is no. And it will always be no. And a man who can answer that question no asterisk can sleep, whatever they decide, whatever it costs. I did not arrest her. She saved a prince, and I would not let her be caged for it, and that is the whole of my account, and I'll stand by it before this court or any other or before God, who saw it too, from a higher gallery than mine.